Hello and welcome to yet another edition of India Employer Forum's Samvaad, our leadership dialogue series where we engage in deep one-on-one conversation with senior leaders on how the world of work is evolving. I'm KRD Praveen, Head of Marketing at TeamLease Services, and I'll be your moderator for today's conversation. For those who are joining us for the first time, India Employer Forum is a not-for-profit platform that brings together employers, practitioners, and policymakers to explore and discuss burning issues of employment, employability, and ease of doing business for India at 100. We are looking at, $35 trillion economy, and and that's not going to happen without people. Yeah. So that's the kind of conversation that we are going to have. And for those who are, coming here for the first time, TeamLease is the knowledge partner of IEF in supporting their initiatives. So we bring in research, we bring in a lot of knowledge items and thought leadership content to, ameliorate the platform. I'm delighted to have Mr. Manoj Garg, Group CHRO at Dr. Lal PathLab. Dr. Lal PathLab is, very well known in the industry. In fact, in the diagnostic sectors, it is growing at 13% YOY, whereas the industry is growing at about 10%. So, and that doesn't happen without people. Yeah. So the credit for this growth and bringing people on board and retaining them and training them and everything goes to Mr. Manoj Garg. And Mr. Manoj Garg brings deep experience shaping HR and organizational transformation across healthcare, telecom, and tech. So his unique perspective would be a great experience to have a conversation with regarding productivity and so on and so forth. For today's conversation, we have selected a very interesting topic, which is we are going to talk about healthcare per se, but it goes beyond healthcare. The topic for discussion is hiring-led growth, okay? From hiring-led growth, hiring and performance-led growth. And that shift is quite evident after ChatGPT. Yeah. So, very interesting perspective and a discussion. I'm looking forward to it, Mr. Garg. So, Mr. Garg, my first question to you is, redefining productivity in diagnostics. Yeah. So diagnostics is often described as volume-driven business, where productivity is measured in terms of sample collected, sample processed, turnaround time, and so on and so forth. But in reality, productivity is diagnostics also, it carries accuracy, trust, and right decision making also as the heart of all these things. When we are in 2026, everything is getting AI led, AI driven, and so on and so forth. How do you define workforce productivity today? And how has this definition evolved as diagnostics organizations are preparing and getting ready for this AI and disruption?
Thank you, Praveen. And thanks a lot for inviting me over this webinar and really appreciate a very warm welcome. So to understand productivity in diagnostics, I think we'll have to step back a little bit and understand how exactly productivity is achieved in organizations, right? What you mentioned as sample collected, sample processed, those are more like process productivity, right? And those are ways of quantifying the processes. However, when it comes to people productivity, it is a comprehensive design which is into play. You look at role analysis, you look at role overlaps, you do role redesigns, you look at null value adding activity analysis, you look at automation, you look at what exactly needs to be completely eliminated from the process, and if you can't eliminate, what can you outsource? So all those things come into play when one talks about productivity. And I think at Dr. Lal PathLabs in last 10, 11 years or so, we have done a tremendous amount of work around some of these aspects. I'll take a few examples for your consumption or understanding. We used to, in diagnostics, there is a early morning sample collection rush. So
yeah,
the peak is between 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. when people come and give samples, and predominantly because quite a lot of tests require fasting. However, inside the lab, the technicians are required, let's say, from 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. onwards. There was a time when people who used to collect the samples were different and the people who used to run the machines were different. However, their qualifications and experience was more or less the same. So we looked at this whole aspect and said, okay, why can't we really do role re-engineering or role redesign and create something called multitaskers in the diagnostic industry. And thus a person would be able to not only collect the samples from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., but also have some responsibilities inside the lab after 10 a.m. or so when the workload comes down. This is just one example. After the UPI and all digital payments have come in, we have seen a reduction in the cash which is getting collected at the time of sample collection. UPI has come in. So the role of content inside the lab has come down dramatically. And a lot of automation has led to reduction in the manual work. So eventually, I would say productivity is not a destination for us. It's a journey. On an everyday basis, one keeps on evaluating what new inputs are coming in around us so that we can do work more efficiently. And that is why I think Dr. Lal PathLabs has been a very, very efficiently run organization with a very, very good control over people expenses.
Yeah, very interesting. Actually, I heard you initially and then I started taking notes. It was quite interesting that, I have been a process improvement consultant. So we used to do Six Sigma based process improvement consulting engagements and projects and so on and so forth. And what impressed me about this was it was not about process per se, but it was, role redesigning. I mean, I never thought of a Six Sigma project running like this. So quite interesting. So from here, I'll try to, take a detour to hiring for role effectiveness, where, as you talked about, some of the roles have become redundant, for example, with UPI, right? So how are you thinking about designing roles or workload distribution and skill alignment to improve output without simply adding headcounts or increasing workforce pressure? Because you have, as you talked about, the pressure increases in the morning, but probably, it is not that very much in post 10 o'clock, post breakfast.
Right. So Praveen, we do quite a lot, many things. First and foremost, I want to, reiterate that whatever we do, quality and timely output is non-negotiable. Compliance is non-negotiable. Dr. Lal PathLabs has a value which is called quality, and at no point in time we ever mess with the quality of the processes and outcomes. Having said that, I think the hiring has kind of changed where now we very clearly have a job description which describes the multitasking. So people who get hired in the labs, they know that they have to do all activities, including sample collection, machine management, quality processes. There is something called quality assurance in the lab, SRA, SDR, and so on and so forth. So first and foremost, very clear job descriptions are shared upfront. Hiring criteria has not changed because ours is a medical company. The ability or the quality of medical talent is super for us. So our hiring process remains more or less checking for the medical skills, so sample collection skills and the knowledge of the various processes and the machines, but expectation setting is like that. Second, to manage the workload during the day, we use shifts very efficiently. It is not that we have just 3 shifts operation. There are multiple shifts running in a lab in our company. We have started to emphasize more and more on data literacy. We try and ensure that all people who are hired in the company are already, trained on data handling. They have basic understanding of Excel sheets and so on and so forth, because we have moved our decision making dramatically onto data driven. They should be in a position to analyze trends locally. They should be in a position to identify outliers and take corrective action. So we have run a very large skilling program on Microsoft Excel, which is a very basic thing, but training everybody who is in the front line on Microsoft Excel so that they are able to analyze data, collect data, present the trends, and then take some corrective actions. So that is what we do. We also keep on introducing a lot of tech and tools so that we are able to harness the power of technology. And this we do let's take an example of HR processes. Today, we have a sentiment analysis tool which continuously polls employees across the various segments, and thus ensuring that we hear the voices of each and every employee at least once in 2 months or 3 months without running a very large survey per se. And that data is collected, analyzed, and we figure out the sentiments across the organization and take corrective actions. So there are multiple ways in which productivity is improved, and we are increasingly now looking for people who are not only their subject matter experts but also have a very strong affinity to tech. So that's very critical for us. So Praveen, I think in India, and that too when you are a national company with presence across all the states and so many pin codes, I don't think we have a luxury to hire for very specific, let's say, mandate. We find people who are technically trained as well as technologically aware, but we also find people who did not have that opportunity or privilege. But as I said, we have a minimum requirement to ensure that their medical skills are high. Everything else, we know that we have very robust programs to train people. So we ensure that everybody who comes on board has a very good induction. Over a period of time, they get opportunity to upgrade their skills through various internal programs, and we leverage mobile learning platform to the hilt to really impart various knowledge-based training or skill-based training. Right? So it's a mix, I would say. So we find people who are tech savvy, but we also find people who are medically or functionally very competent, and rest of the stuff we ensure that we are able to impart it to them on the job.
Wow, it is quite interesting and impressive actually. So this brings me to the next question that I have, which is more to do with measuring success. I mean, as the whole diagnostics industry is growing at 10% in terms of CAGR, but you are way above the average. Yeah. So you are doing something differently, something better than the whole industry. And that brings me to this question that, how do you measure performance of your people and how do you evolve this over time? It is not, when I'm talking about your performance, it's last 5 years performance, right? So how do you capture value, reliability, consistency alongside, operational improvement and all these things? How do you do it? How are you, making it possible year on year, year on year?
So Praveen, as you rightly mentioned, that it is a journey, and it's a long-term goal which needs to be achieved. So what we do in addition to individual goals and so on and so forth is that organization has very clearly defined very customer focused output metrics. One of them is on time reporting. In medical field or in healthcare, customers are always very anxious about the outcomes of the lab results because most of them are awaiting those results thereafter to take a next set of actions with their clinicians. And for us, it was very important that we are able to very reliably provide the reports on time, accurate reports on time. So as I said, we were always very strong on quality. So the quality procedures were very strong and SOPs are there and everything was being taken care of. But we focused on timeliness as well. So there is a metric called OTR, on time reporting, and every establishment, every lab has a scorecard which is updated on a daily basis. There is a monthly review of what is your on-time performance of reports. And gradually the organization keeps on finding out reasons why some reports are not going on time and trying to improve that. Second, obviously, is the NPS or customer satisfaction, which I guess is a metric which many organizations which are in B2C, service organizations, they follow. We also follow the same. We capture the NPS, we get the output of the NPS surveys which customers fill, and we strive to improve upon whatever feedback is provided. Third piece is, I think we have implemented quite a lot of tech which gives us visibility at a very granular level. Let's take an example. It is quite normal for us to have a patient in Kanyakumari giving us a sample at 7 a.m. at one of our franchisee locations. Today, we have a logistics solution where the tech is able to track that tube till the time it reaches the lab, when it gets, let's say, tested, and when the report comes out. So there are multiple milestones at which this information is available. And this allows the team, which is in the operations, to figure out proactively where things are not going right. And there is a team which tries to see if they can course correct during the day itself. And the beauty is that in our process, a sample given at 7 a.m., the expected time of report can be 3 p.m., 4 p.m. So everything happens within 8 to 12 hours. So we are striving to now, in certain geographies where our network is very strong, striving to get reports out in 6 hours time. What I'm trying to tell you is that customer facing output metrics help us fine tune our processes in such a manner that customer feels delighted in, let's say, coming back to us. So quality was always there, timeliness is there, accuracy is there, and there is a wide spectrum of menu which probably we have is probably the best in the country. So all that helps us win customers' faith, and thus customers choose us over other players.
We keep on talking about when we have our internal events with our clients and prospects. We say that the key to any business success is people, and at least until until the robots or AI takes over, that's the key. And you actually have been consistently doing it. One question that came to my mind from your discussions about tech plus tech enabled things and so on and so forth. So we recently released, in the month of December, we released one white paper on workforce maturity model. It is actually based on capability maturity model, CMMI. Since you worked with tech and say telecom, you would understand that very well. So what we have done is we understood what capability maturity model is and how it works, how it creates framework and so on and so forth, and we created our own way of putting it across as workforce maturity model. And this framework actually provides a roadmap for organization to move from the very initial level where everything is ad hoc to say managed and then defined and then measured and then to next level. So that's how in our operations consulting also we used to do. And I see that you have already moved to the next level where you are not only measuring, but you have optimized your own performances and you have put processes in place. So what I want to understand is, from here, what is your way of moving to the next level? Because all your competitors will try to catch you. So how are you going to create the niche from people's perspective, from your organizational execution perspective, and from getting ready for the next disruption which is going to come? How you are doing it at Dr. PathLabs?
So Praveen, this is very interesting. When you are a leader in an industry, obviously you have to continuously, let's say, innovate, because there are no examples in front of you to copy. Right. I personally believe that there are two kinds of leaders, and you can see this in many sports events, right? In a 100-meter race, the guy who's leading the pack, there are two kinds of leaders in that pack. One is not really looking at the flanges to figure out who else is catching up. And there is another one who is always worried about whether somebody else is catching up. The first one is focused on where the finish line is. So I am very fortunate that in Dr. Lal PathLabs, the leadership team is always focused at where the finish line is or where the next opportunity is. And interestingly, since we don't have too many benchmarks to really copy, we have to continuously evolve our own, let's say, thinking and benchmarks. So there is a rapid experimentation which continues inside the organization. We are always evaluating new technology. We are always evaluating new processes. We are always questioning our own assumptions, saying, can this be done in 6 hours? So we are not saying, okay, immediately bring it to 3 hours, but what is a practical limit? What I'm trying to say is that it's like, you can call it like Kaizen, right? So small measurable improvements, but you don't stop. You don't really feel satisfied with whatever. And interestingly, we are living in a world where the tech is moving at a very faster pace. The interesting part is that while people may not know, but we are quite tech centered and we have invested heavily in tech. Way back in 2019, when AI was not so popular, we had our first machine learning algorithm, which was implemented in Dr. Lal PathLabs. This was to
Wow.
predict the time of report, right? So we have been continuously looking at saying what benefit we can derive out of implementation of tech so that we can, let's say, improve our own standards or our own performance. And I think that's been a very satisfying journey. It continues to drive superior performance inside the organization, and thus it keeps us above the pack.
Yeah. So when you were answering, I was taking notes, and simultaneously I was remembering one of the books. I just love that book because of its title also, and unfortunately Intel that didn't keep up with that. The title is Only the Paranoid Survive, and by chance it is written by the founder and CEO of Intel NDS Group. They didn't do it, but I was just thinking about it that okay, when you are at number one, you are always paranoid that okay, I have to remain here, and that's why you are keep on experimenting, questioning your assumptions, and so on and so forth. So, Manoj, you actually touched upon a very interesting keyword here when you answered that question. That was leadership. Okay, what I want to understand from you is one, your business is very people centric. Number one. Number two, and your customers are also equally concerned about their health, and therefore they're trusting you. And the second thing is you yourself are one of the HR leaders. Plus, it is completely high pressure environment. So when it comes to say leaders and managers, what roles the supervisors and people manager play in sustaining the productivity and managing the burnouts of the folks, because you're completely distributed organization. So how do you manage it as an HR leader, and how does the team at local places manage it?
So there is no easy answer, Praveen, because elements like these happen over a period of time. I would say the culture of an organization plays a huge role in what you are able to achieve. And culture does not get created overnight. What you are seeing today at Dr. Lal PathLabs is a hard work of last 70, 75 years of right from the time the company started to where it is today. In this process or in this journey, we have had many rounds of leaders coming in and going out, but there has been a very clear, let's say, tenet of culture, which is being very employee centric, being very, let's say, medically focused, being quality driven, being very customer focused has been all pervasive. What we have done right, I think, is we spend a lot of time in selection of leaders. When I say leaders, it's not just the CXOs, I think middle management and top management. There is a clarity in our mind as to what kind of leaders we are looking for. The couple of those attributes could be people with resilience, people who understand how to build a category like medical, which is not necessarily driven by fads and demands, people with very strong service orientation, people who are naturally, let's say, good mentors, have good ability not only to learn new things but also to disseminate new things. So things like these which are very important for our organization, and that's why probably when we look at the cross section of the organization, our tenures have been really great. Leaders have been there for 10 plus years. The next line is also there for 10 plus years, and that gives you a very distinct advantage, because if there is a leadership churn, then maintaining culture is very difficult. But if you have a very stable leadership team, which is aligned to company's vision, is sharing similar values and attributes, then the overall execution becomes very easy, I would say. Despite challenges in the industry, despite the nature of the industry, COVID, we had to work 18 hours. The whole world was shut down, but we were supposed to deliver. And our organization delivered beautifully even during that time. And we also, interestingly, did not have any, fatality of any major consequence on the organization. So we were able to maintain the health of our own employees. So looking at all that, I think this is what I would attribute it to: the culture of the organization, the way the leadership has been able to maintain this culture, and the kind of people who come on board. All these three things have really helped us deliver the promise which we have to our customers.
Very side question, actually. How do you judge resilience? I mean, in an interview, say for example, you are interviewing me. How are you going to judge resilience of me as a candidate because you're meeting with me for the first time?
Right. So, it's again, it's very subjective. right? But when you really do a behavioral event interview, if you spend enough time and probe in detail, the signs of resilience are very clear and you can figure those out, right? Second, we do a lot of reference check, and we are always interested in hearing what the previous managers have said about the individual. And again, resilience is very opposite of pure excitement, adrenaline based execution, tick in the box, right? So it is not that it is if you have trained yourself in behavioral interview skills, then you can spot it easily.
What would that be? And how do you know, how do you learn or grow in that particular skill?
So I will have probably two answers to it. One is for people who are coming into the workforce, and one is for organizations. For people who are coming into the workforce, I think the world has changed dramatically. There is so much of tech enablement which is happening. And the interesting part with this whole tech-led world is that things go obsolete very quickly. One advice: be curious and continuously learn. What you learned in your college is not going to sustain for a very long time. So your functional skills need to be developed on the job, but just keep learning. And it's a burden, it's a overhead of this new tech enabled world that you will have to learn on a day-to-day basis, everyday basis. For the organizations, I think it is the opposite. There is so much of noise in tech that it becomes very difficult to figure out which one of them is really a signal and which of the things are fad. So I always feel that anything and everything which can be automated doesn't mean that it should be automated. Managers or leaders need to have a viewpoint saying, why am I automating something? Why am I bringing this technology? And so on and so forth. So it has to be meaningful. It must deliver the ROI. It must improve the productivity, and so on and so forth. So for organizations and leaders, they need to delve deeper into the real reasons why they would like to adopt or embrace a certain technology. But that's a hard one. So you will have to continuously dip your toes and roll up your sleeves, but make a conscious choice.
Yeah. Quite interesting. In fact, a couple of takeaways that I have from our discussion, Manoj. One is, the fundamental shift of operations improvement is not just necessarily about process improvement. It can be about the way you look at the work or the way you look at people and their skills and redesign the roles. That was one big thing that, we initially discussed. And then second is about the skills and identifying the skills. The third thing that I understood from you about is being, looking at creating your own benchmarks, question your assumptions and so on and so forth, because the way we talked about the workforce maturity model I was talking to you about. And one very important thing is, be curious, keep learning. At the same time, yesterday I was talking to one of my friends. We continuously talk about what do we do next in marketing. And the interesting thing was, okay, can we automate this? Can we automate that? Was one of the questions. And you nailed it by, just answering that question to me. We were just debating about it. And you said that, if something can be automated, should we do it? Is the right question to ask before thinking about automating it. Thank you so much, Manoj, for joining us today.